collided with man and beast. As they got closer to the Grothook River, they could hear the sound of gunfire and yelling. Will nudged his pony into a canter, and Sergeant Black followed suit. Camp Z was a concentration camp for African prisoners who had worked in some capacity for the Boers in the Orange Free State. The condition for most inmates in the British camps had improved since the findings of the Fawcett Commission and the noisy campaigns of Emily Hobhouse and David Lloyd George. Before Hobhouse's polemics in the liberal press, thousands of Boer women and children had perished from malnutrition and disease, while their menfolk were shipped to prison camps overseas. Over the last year, however, the Boer camps had seen ameliorated food supplies and the establishment of prison hospitals. But the truth was that almost nothing had been done to better the lot of the native African prisoners. No one in England or Germany or anywhere else got terribly worked up about the well-being of inmates in the Kaffir camps. As they neared Camp Z, Will and Sergeant Black saw the first escapee, a boy of about 11, running blindly toward the town, with blood pouring from a head wound. Sergeant Black raised his rifle, but Will shook his head. One runaway child didn't amount to much. As they climbed the cop, they passed another half-dozen boys and one old man jogging up the hill. "Doesn't look good, Sergeant," Will said. "Nay, sir," Black agreed. They followed the curve of the Grothook River and galloped to the camp entrance, where they found the situation parlous in the extreme. Seemingly the entire population of around 1,000 men, women and children was attacking the small military foot police garrison, who were lined up in 2 rows in front of the camp gates. 3 of the MFP soldiers were already injured, but a corporal was holding the nerve of the remaining men. Some of the prisoners were escaping over the barbed wire, and others were in the process of ransacking the aid station and supply shed. But by far the biggest danger was the mob at the gate. If the line of 12 military policemen broke, the entire camp could run off into the South African night. Will was in his dress uniform, armed with a 6-shot revolver and a cavalry sabre. He dismounted, unsheathed the sword, and ran to the camp entrance. "Lieutenant Pryor assuming command," he bellowed. A terrified private let Sergeant Black and Will inside the gate, and it was at that moment that the Africans surged forward again. 2 volleys from the soldiers kept them back, but Will could see that several dozen African men had ripped the corrugated iron roof from the storage shed and were preparing an assault from behind these improvised barriers. If the prisoners all charged at once, they would certainly overrun the position. "Sergeant Black, go to the guardhouse, find the bloody Maxim gun and bring it back here." Sergeant Black saluted and ran to the guardhouse. He did not ask the obvious question. What if Camp Z did not possess a Maxim gun? "Does anyone know how this kicked off?" Will asked the soldiers. "They've had no food or medicine for 4 days. The supplies haven't come through," a Scottish corporal told him. "We've been taking the dead ones out in carts, sir." Will marched in front of the line of military policemen and addressed the mob. "Return to your tents at once. We will not hesitate to shoot if you attempt to escape." He was well aware that few, if any of them, spoke English, but he hoped that his uniform and sword would at least have a visual impact. The mob jeered, and someone threw an improvised spear at him, which missed. "Return to your tents at once. The food situation cannot be addressed until order has been restored." A skeletal woman dressed in rags ran to him from the mob and fell at his feet. He was horrified by her miserable, hollow face and bony, outstretched fingers. My God, were all the prisoners like this? He looked beyond the woman to the other inmates, and from what he could see in the lamplight, it was the same story. Half-dead, naked, brown, stick-like figures, with weeping sores and great gaping eyes. For almost his entire time in South Africa, he had been on standard policing duties in captured Boer towns or in the British garrison. He had heard the stories, of course, and even read the reports in the Manchester Guardian, but he had expected nothing like this. He stepped away in horror and backed toward the British line.